Hi there, welcome to breaking news in the Noah Presgrove case. A new response has come out from Noah Presgrove's mother, known as Casey Smith, under a different username on Facebook. I believe Tree Flower has called out Jack Newton in recent time amongst one of Michael Facecast's posts, looking into the mystery and the switching around of timelines, timestamps and discrepancies supposedly with Noah's best friend Jack Newton. Join me today as we piece it all together, look at previous screenshots, text messages, conversations, the lot, and I'll give you my thoughts on the matter in an analysis. And take in mind, depending on which route we take today and where things go, it could be unexpected. There might be a map analysis which may follow in an upcoming video. So be on the lookout for it. Be sure to stick around today for the full understanding, and later on in this video I'll share with you what Noah's mom had to say about Jack Newton and how it ties in line with today's conversation. Whilst not everybody may see eye to eye with Michael Facecast in regard to the post that he creates, whether it makes sense or not, whether it's a bit erratic or not, if it brings in the right people, such as the victim's family and what they've got to say, it helps us learn as well. And some of the stuff what I've seen and what's been mentioned by her, I've never heard of before. So does it turn the tables upside down? Does it change the whole landscape of things based on the timing? I see when it comes to 3:30, I've seen that in the words by Jack Newton. Have I heard it in the words by other people? Not so much. Have we seen any other official written statements and whatnot by other partygoers talking about 3:30? No. When it came to Caden Pressey, Caden said he was told by Jasmine Millan it was between 2 to 3 in the morning, but Jack says 3:30. And what Tree Flower has said, what she's been told or heard of with a conversation with Jack in the past, it was at a completely earlier time, quite drastic. How does that complicate all the events? Does it add in another layer of Noah wandering off multiple times? Does it reinforce indirectly with what Jasmine Millan said when telling Caden about Noah walking off here and then walking off later? How many times did Noah wander off? And 2 or 3 times in total, and that final one unsuccessful. So what makes that final time walking away different to the earlier times of walking away? What factors and variables changed? What remained a constant? Was the atmosphere different between one time walking off and then walking off later? Caden Pressey had said when Noah normally walks off, it's because he's drunk and he's trying to cool off and he doesn't want to bring the mood down at a party, which is understandable, a selfless act. But what changed on this final one? There's a lot to look at, but we're going to break it down bit by bit, and I'll just give you my thoughts just to help on the matter and what I remember. Welcome if you are currently watching the live premiere. Hopefully enough people have gathered tonight. Shout out to those that did watch last night's. Good portion of people present, and the new findings and new map analysis, a new location of interest. Been a couple of videos recently looking at new, never seen before or hardly seen before material. If you want to catch up on all of that, if you've missed out on anything in recent time and the past, don't worry. Every video you can find in the full playlist, which you can locate top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. Click there, you get the drop-down menu box with the full playlist and some loose videos too. And for those watching live, you let me know your reactions in the chat box located on the right side of the screen and at any given point. And for those watching on catch-up, if you've got any other comments you want to elaborate on, talk about, questions, answers, theories, discussions, reactions to today's information, drop a comment below under the video. It will help with the engagement, discussions and learning, and it will help push the video out there. And this is quite an important video today, especially when the victim's family speaks out, because we don't often hear about it, especially from Noah's mum, Casey Smith. Last time she spoke out or conversations were shared about, don't know if it was by Michael or somebody else, it was to do with the confirming of golf clubs and bags still missing. Linking on with like what Robin Smith and Ashley Chadwick said, but Casey Smith mentioned it. Casey also mentioned about how she was the last or got the second-hand stuff of Noah, personal possessions, not first choice, despite being the biological mother. That Deborah Smith, the aunt, or Deborah Smith, the grandmother, kind of took charge of who gets what as for items, and Casey was isolated from that particular event. I think that's the last thing what we took a look at, which was by her speaking out in some way. But once again, it's happened, and this time it's more public. So after all this time, it's quite interesting. Of course, there might be a certain outlook towards Jack Newton just because of the way things have gone with the wrongful death lawsuit, because Jack is considered a defendant. So the family's outlook is going to be probably more critical and cautious and skeptical of Jack amongst the other said individuals. But look, this is the thing. This is where the balance comes in today. There's been quite a bit of time where I've looked at it, where we've questioned Caden Pressey, his discrepancies, where it doesn't make sense, where it doesn't quite add up. Gone in quite heavy there, and obviously people from one side, more so than the other, started whining and throwing the toys out the pram, and yet look where we are today, looking at it towards Jack Newton for possible inconsistencies or discrepancies. So I'm going to do the same what I did with Caden and try to do the same here with Jack Newton for that balance. But I can only work with what's available and what I know of. So whether I go in hard or not, it varies depending on the material and the screenshots present, okay? And we'll see if any screenshots have been cropped or highlighted, or if it's somewhat selective or not, because that can tell a story too. So the order of what we'll do things today, we're going to look at the original post which has sparked it all off, Michael Fazkaz on Facebook. Just acknowledge what's been said, look at some previous screenshots which give context behind Jack Newton, certain stories told from the early days onwards, from what BBC said, I believe, and then look at the comment section, what Noah's mum said about Jack and the additional responses too, and see where it ultimately leads. Without further ado, let's get in and begin analysing. You'll be able to find this on the Presgrove Project page on Facebook, post by Michael Fazkaz 22 hours ago. There's actually been a collection of them back to back. And I did say, depending what will happen next, we'll see what needs to be covered. And that was to do with the cameras and the property. But this is more important and indirectly speaking, because it wasn't made clear as to whether it was a post, whether it was a comment until a few questions were asked. The user, the channel name Charlie on YouTube, who's been present in recent time. Not everybody sees eye to eye with Charlie. I think I might have come across Charlie here and there and there was a misunderstanding. It is where it is. But in some way or another, Charlie was of help last night or this morning in regard to bringing it up about what Noah's mum has said. Now, I would have got to it eventually, but it does need to be covered as soon as possible. So with them giving the heads up, as in head over here, it wasn't made clear what post, right? But the comment was supposedly made by Noah's mum, very recent. So I just went through a couple of them, found it, and that's why we're here now. In terms of anybody else reaching out or informing me about it, that didn't happen, but Charlie did give the heads up. So that's appreciated. That being said, let's just read what's mentioned here. Jack's bedtime story, the never-ending sequel. Sounds like a book. Michael says, first of all, Jack Newton claimed he went to bed early and knew nothing about what happened after Noah walked off. That was his original bedtime story. But then the story got sequels. Suddenly, his phone is pinging in the field behind the house at weird hours, whilst he was supposedly asleep. That's written off as random anomalies. Later, Brooke Bounds-Carter, BBC, says Avery and others were the ones searching for Noah whilst Jack was in the bed. Another version pops up where Jack got back after 6 a.m. So which chapter are we supposed to believe? Was Jack sound asleep? Was he out in the field where his phone pinged? Or was he up searching with the others? The bedtime story keeps getting rewritten whenever new details like geofence warrants get mentioned. First no search, then a search, first asleep, then awake, first no involvement, then just anomalies. Bedtime stories are supposed to help kids sleep, not confuse the truth about a young man's death. Okay, so we'll break it down bit by bit. I'm going to keep it on screen whilst I talk, just so you can follow along where we're at, and it just helps as guidance. These different chapters, how many of them are true? Is one true and the rest false? Are we only supposed to believe and trust in one and then the others can't be because there is an overlap? If there's no overlap, they could all be true or they could all be false. There can be an order to it. Just like with Caden Pressey to Tyler Hardy, that individually what they both say could be true, but then there's a middle factor to explain why there's a disconnect between the two when they try and talk together or had done. So if I just zoom in a little bit whilst I break it down and analyse these different sequels, suddenly Jack's phone is pinging in the field, as in north, and supposedly near to where Noah's body was to later be found, or behind the highway, behind where the body was to be found. But that particular field is on the other side, I believe, of the sand plank crossing heading on north. So it's not close to the house. And if you were on the property of the party house in the north field heading north, you'd get up to the sand plank crossing, which is fenced off or so. Then you'd have to cross over that to get into the field further on. So it's a little problematic that. Would Jack likely be over that way? No. And with that sandplank crossing and the fencing, it just makes it not as accessible if you was to go north straight through the fields. So I just don't think that's the case. Could it come down to a bad signal? That is still possible. I mean, have we seen any other people with a bad signal, an incorrect phone ping? We haven't at this moment. So it does make Jack a bit of an odd one out. But then you got Caden Pressey with his timeline making him an odd one out. And sometimes odd ones out can still be true or right in some way. So that's why you got to take it all into consideration. As for weird hours, don't know why it would be worded like that, but I believe that's what Brooke Bounds-Carter typed it as when having a conversation with someone through Facebook Messenger, which we've looked at just recently. I guess weird hours could be interpreted as like really early in the morning, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or round about that. Times of when you would expect people to be fast asleep. You know what I'm saying? If it was something like 2:30, no, not 2:30, 3:49, 5:13, odd times like that when you'd expect them to be asleep based on what others were doing. Why would the odd person out be awake or active somewhere for the phone to be pinging? I do get that. But what needs to be acknowledged, Michael, and for other people, as long as your phone is turned on, and there's background apps being used, or by default there are background apps which use location services, GPS, etc., the phone can still ping. In the Dylan Rounds case, even when the phone wasn't in use but it remained turned on, when the killer was in possession of Dylan's phone, moving about from farm to Grainshed property and to the pond and to his friend's place, that direction and that journey was documented through the phone pings. At first, the masts, the cell phone signal, etc., the towers measured it as a 15.4 mile radius where the pings were at. And then came the, what do we call it, forensics or a digital deep dive into into Dylan's phone and the true timestamps and the true accurate pings. It's because when Dylan Rounds got to the grain shed at, what was it now? Was it 5? It was 6:03 in the morning when Dylan made it to the grain shed property, and then it was 6:27 when the killer was in possession of Dylan's phone, right? Within a roughly 30-minute time difference of the death. But the phone remained turned on. The weather app was in use in the background. So that weather app and any other social media which is using phone ping, GPS, location service, it's helping the phone ping away. For as long as that phone remains turned on and the app's in use in the background, it can ping. The same could have happened with Jack Newton. Jack could have well been asleep, had his phone in his hand or by the bedside table. As long as Jack's phone remained turned on or in standby and as background apps, the same can happen there and the phone can still ping. If there is interruption, if there is interference, if there is a dodgy connection or something which causes the ping to have an anomaly. But then again, is it really an anomaly when you've got multiple during a period of time? An anomaly is that one odd result, that one odd finding which stands out from everything else, but it's remained consistent and stable all the way through, and then that one time it changes and it's unusual, it's weird. So got to take that into consideration. So Jack can be asleep, phone can still be on, and it can still be pinging away. If it's in use, if the location, GPS is present, and there might be other ways as well. So it's worth acknowledging. What's this? Later, Brooke Bounce Carter says Avery and others were the ones searching for Noah. Well, that could be the case. We saw it with, just recently, Avery and Brylan Sweat at the Sandplank Crossing, and that was 4:22, 4:24, around that point where the pings were, and then shortly afterwards returned back to the party house after searching that Logan, Jasmine and Carter had returned back to the party house at around 4:20 to 4:22, round about then. Jack Newton, what was Jack doing? Asleep all the way through. But then the same would be for Caden Pressey. Caden Pressey was asleep as well. Caden Pressey didn't go searching, and he wasn't even woken up either, based at that time. Even if you was to somehow use Caden's timeline of 5:15, these events of partygoers searching beforehand was before Caden was woken up, so it implies Caden was still asleep along with Jack Newton then, based on that. Why would that be the case? Why wouldn't certain partygoers wake up Noah's best friend, Jack, to at least give that closure, to say, hey, Jack, your best friend Noah, we can't find him. He's gone missing. We're going out searching. Do you want to help? You'd think maybe it's out of respect. You don't want to wake someone up. You don't want to disturb their sleep, disrupt their sleep patterns. Maybe they've got a busy day in the morning, they've got work later, so you don't want to get in the way. But wouldn't you think to consider that whilst you're out searching or about to, wouldn't it be best if Noah's best friend was as well? To be included, to not be left out, to not be left in the dark. Communication goes a long way amongst friends, family, loved ones, partners. If there's no communication, then what will happen? It becomes dysfunctional. If there's a tragedy, if there's a bad event, if someone's gone missing and it's temporary or long term, others are searching about, but the best friend, the other half, the partner isn't told, what's it going to do for them when they do wake up later and then find out what's happened, if not worse? But they couldn't be there at the time to experience the moment, but they couldn't be there at the time to offer their true knowledge of what's likely the cause and the case, because sometimes best friend, a loved one, a partner who may know their other half, significant other very well in terms of behaviour, patterns and routines, they could provide useful in an active search. When other friends and other strangers are blindly looking around trying to make sense of what could have happened, if there's that one individual that may have the key to knowledge to some extent, and just that key of closure, they should be included. And yet Jack was supposedly asleep and no one decided to wake him up. Carter Combs was out and about searching but didn't wake up Jack, maybe because Carter didn't want to disturb or interrupt Jack's sleep and thought they could do it themselves. It might not be that deep, but sometimes when it's a significant person, and that significant person that who they're connected with or know of could be in danger, trouble, or just missing, you'd think that there'd be a level of priority in letting them know, right? That was the case a bit later on, supposedly at 5:30 when Jasmine Millan woke up Jack about the situation, but not earlier. So you let me know what you think about that aspect. What's this one? And then there's another version where Jack has got back after 6 in the morning. I think that one is a bit more self-explanatory. Based on the story chapter claim of 6 in the morning onwards when Jack has gone back to the house, returning back, the reason why that makes sense as an individual chapter, with acknowledging some of the previous chapters which can go in line with one another to an extent, as in Jack earlier asleep, oblivious, clueless to what's going on, asleep, phone still on, phone still pinging away, interference, bad signal, anomalies, or an anomaly more so to make it stand out. And then in between, others going out searching but also not wanting to wake Jack up, don't want to be rude, don't want to disrupt someone's sleep if they're already asleep. I mean, if Caden Pressey wasn't woken up, then would Jack have been woken up? Is it just first come, first serve? Those that are awake will be told and informed. Those that are resting but not asleep will be told and move about. I mean, what about Mikey Lair? What about Isaac Rojas? Okay, Brylan Sweat went out searching, but why didn't Mikey? Why didn't Isaac? Is it because those were exceptions of people that were asleep? Is it more so they said, whoever wants to go out searching, you can do so, and those that can't or can't be bothered or don't want to, fine. And some stay at the house just in case Noah returns back. Sometimes when searches are done, you get so many people that are sent out in one direction, and then others are sent out in another direction, and then in another direction. But then there might always be at least 1 or 2 people that remains at ground zero, remains back at the house just in case the missing person returns back and shows up, right? Because you want to cover all angles and perspectives. But in terms of 6 in the morning onwards, based on Jack's timeline and based on other people's collectively, with the exclusion of Caden Pressey's, it had been mentioned that 5:43 and then up to 5:53 is when those truckers, those general public guys that came on down, unaware of what to find, but came across it, made a call into police dispatch, all official, documented, and that's the beginning. That's what set the ball rolling. That party goes still oblivious to compared to what the truckers came across, because the 5:27 in the morning snap shows Mikey, Logan, Jasmine in bed, awake but laughing and joking, and yet Logan and Jasmine, who earlier, prior, were searching about looking for Noah, unsuccessful. But then after that point, when returning back to the house at 4:20, 4:22, it was like, oh well, and carried on. Like nothing happened, just assuming that Noah's okay, probably made it back home in a different way, just like that. And Jack as well, at some point, 5:30 onwards, thought, probably no big deal, no big fuss. But isn't it interesting, though, if a search was to be done earlier, that friends to Noah took it in a form of consideration to go out actually searching. There was a level of concern in order to search. But someone like best friend Jack was playing it off as no need to search, don't even consider going out searching. Probably Noah has got a ride back home. Probably Noah could be in the field and when it gets too hot, returns back. Well, if that was the case, then why didn't partygoers go out into the field to search around that time, or at the time of when Jack said, well, Noah could have been elsewhere, Noah could have been in the field, so when it gets too hot, he'll return back. And if he doesn't, well, maybe he's in the field still. Well, why don't partygoers then go out into the field besides just the highway? This is what I'm saying. If Jack Newton didn't react at the time, it's not a sign of not caring. It can be a sign of knowing your friend too well in terms of their routine, their pattern. To outsiders and just friends who see someone that they're familiar with could think, I wonder what's on that person's mind. I wonder what they're getting up to now. Are they talking? Are they hanging out? Are they working? Are they sleeping? Are they getting some food? Are they spending time with family? Are they out and about on a walk? Are they sleeping, oversleeping? Are they okay? There's a lot of questions and maybe not enough answers, but if you are the exception where you know of that other person, that other half very well, you might have a better sense, a better idea. As long as there's communication in a friendship or communication in a relationship, you will get a better idea of what to expect, to anticipate, to know what may come next, the routines and the patterns. So for you, it doesn't worry you, it doesn't concern you the same way as it might for other people that are outsiders that don't know the full context. So you would hope that those that lack context would want to seek answers, and if one has the answers or possibilities, then they should reach out to that said individual, which would have been Jack Newton. But no, that wasn't done. Jack remained asleep. And then at 5:30, when woken up, supposedly around that time, and Jasmine says, your friend's not about, missing, and Jack's like, well, it's probably this, it's probably that, no big deal. No concern from the best friend to go out searching, but more concern from just friends of Noah, who aren't as close as Jack is to Noah, that did go out searching earlier. So you could say some seem to care more than other people. As for Caden Pressey, maybe people didn't wake Caden up because they didn't think Caden would be able because of the mobility issues, the injury, the recovery from that, supposedly. But as for the best friend Jack, you would have thought maybe partygoers would have tried alerting Jack about the situation a bit earlier. Whether Jack went out searching and assisting or not, it would have made it a bit clearer. Now, what Michael is getting at about the possible field and the phone pinging on further north in that field, which is creating anomalies or an anomaly, and it stands out, could that be interpreted as at some point Jack Newton did wake up, decided to join in with a search, and because in his words, I believe, to do with the field, in a field, Noah probably laying in, and if it gets too hot, he'll probably come back to the house. Well, if that didn't happen and time still went on, did Jack think, well, you know what? He should be back by now, but he's not. So maybe I'll go into the field north and start looking about. And is that why the phone pinged? Did it ping at unusual times because Jack was searching about looking for Noah, as in the field area? I would understand that possibility. I believe it was mentioned by some in the community claiming that Jack Newton did go out searching and tried looking for Noah and did everything that he could, but no time was given. So, okay, 5:30, Jack wakes up, told by Jasmine the news. Jack doesn't really budge or do much. 5:53, Jack is up and ready, supposedly, in his vehicle, parked up on Party House property, texting his father about the fishing trip and relocating and meeting at Warwicker Lake Ramp, the boat ramp. So from 5:30 of being told about your best friend not present, missing, to then 5:53, right, ready for the fishing trip. At what point in between 5:30 and 5:53 did Jack do anything, or did he just remain resting in bed? Right? I think that conversation has come up to some extent already about just resting here and there, being awake and conscious, but not actually moving much at all. So if people are claiming that Jack did search and did everything that he could to try and find Noah, how can you if you're stationary in a bed? And if Jack did move about, where did he go first? If other partygoers earlier went down to the highway, Sandplank Crossing, no results yielded success, well, where do you go from there? Where would Jack then go from there if he did participate? So I just wanted to add that in as the possibilities. If we know if the phone pings, the timing of it, and if it did by some chance link in with a time of when Jack supposedly did go searching for Noah, you could make a link, of course. But if it's pinged at odd times in roughly the same location at a time of when Jack's asleep, then likely it's just because of the bad signal, bad reception, phone pings, data, whatever you want to call it, jumping about, as long as the phone remains turned on and there's a background app or service which is using location GPS that can help with the pings. If the phone was turned off, then that would be odd. If location, Wi-Fi, data, signal was turned off, then what's going on with the pings? That would be a bit unusual. And most people tend to leave their phones turned on or in standby, so likely the pings would be pinging away, right? I know we've had the previous discussions of if any partygoers did go searching, how many of them took their phones with them for communication to document anything. And I guess to some extent with Avery and Brylan Sweat, the pinging at the Sandplank Crossing implies that they both had phones with them on them at the time, which also makes sense during a search because you use it as like a walkie-talkie in a way. You call in, report back. Have you found anything? Ticking it off the list. Where else to go next? But whilst Avery and Brylan was at the Sandplank Crossing searching, and Logan, Carter and Jasmine returned back to the house, was there anybody else elsewhere searching? I've not seen any answers about that. So, interesting. In addition, with the whole 6 in the morning onwards, and tying in line with what other partygoers have said or collectively have said on and off, and also friends of friends or parents of parents, guardians calling out Caden, saying he probably got it wrong, probably made a mistake. And it is stacked against Caden, unfortunately, but with the hard evidence that's come out along the way, it has discredited and put Caden down because it's shown massive discrepancies. But really, it's always been 5:15 Caden's timeline versus 6 in the morning onwards. That's how it's always been. So it's nothing new, Michael. And then the possibilities of the chapter of it being true or existing in terms of Jack's timeline, in terms of the collective timeline, which is against Caden, whilst it is stacked, it's not just Jack, I guess. And the way articles have reported on it too. That 5:43 officially called in, police dispatch, truckers seeing it for the first time. 5:53 Jack getting ready to leave and go down the highway to be faced with what's ahead, to park up, to stop, and to visualize what's going on, process it, get up close and confirm that's my best friend. And the truckers are there to witness that, them, as in the identification. And then 5 minutes later at 6:05, Jack makes the call to his father, Caleb, to say the plan's changed, best friend's dead on the highway, and whatever else is said in the convo. Caleb's dad comes on down, which could take, 45 minutes. So there's a waiting period. So at 6:05 in the morning, after that call being done, Jack could have gone back to the party house. And technically, if Caden's 5:15 timeline is incorrect, then the 6 in the morning onwards would have to be the only other one from what we're aware of. That after 6:05, it would make sense for Jack to get back to the party house to let everyone know what's happened and what Jack has seen firsthand. It would tie in line with the chapters of Jack asleep, unusual pings, in between, party goes searching out of interest, trying to figure out what's happened, unaware, and then Jack later finds out firsthand, and 6:05 in the morning onwards, rushes back to the house to let people know. That's when Caden Pressey knows, and that whole 5:15 actually meant to say 6:15 as a possibility. Phone data, phone record could back up Caden, but the problem is we've yet to see it public, and up to a certain point, maybe still recent, the victim's family were yet to receive it as well. That Caden Pressey made a public statement and an agreement, his word, that he would download the Apple data on his phone and then release it public. Not even share it to the family private, but just outright post it public, which is interesting. Caden was also at the time willing to let someone buy his old phone with all the data on it, as in anyone can buy it. Putting the general public first before the victim's family is a little bit questionable in a way, just based on a overt non-participant observation. But beside that, it just didn't happen. And the whole meet-up between some of Noah's family members and the Pressey household to finally sweep it off the rug, to clear everything up, for that clarity, a one-time thing, to see the data, to prove that Caden's 5:15 timeline, that it was 5:15 when the announcement of Noah's death was true, and that's when Jack found out, and so on. Just never happened. It didn't happen. So it's not done much good for Caden, done much good for Alicia, it's done no good for the 5:15 timeline, so that's kind of been brushed away, dismissed now. It could come back into conversation, of course, don't completely forget about it, but it seems like if 5:15 is off the table, the next one will be 6 in the morning onwards, because 5:43, the first official call-in and all of that, and then onwards when Jack is getting ready to go, and then plans change because of that unexpected finding ahead on the highway. So, it makes sense after 6:05 to return back to the house to let everybody know what's up. So things can link in with one another. But as for the suggestions of, did Jack join in with searching? Does that link to the phone pinging in the field? I just find that hard to believe because of the access. If you're at the party house property, you go into the field, which is the north one, and that leads up to the sand plank crossing and that dirt road, which I think is all fenced off. And then on the other side of that sandplank crossing north is another field. And then that's what's closer and behind the highway and spot where Noah's body was to be found. So it'd be awkward to try and climb over the fencing. And I just don't think you would go out of that way and beyond. You know, if people are willing to go so far down the highway but stop at the sandplank crossing because they feel it's dragging on, how many more miles are we going to cover? Wasn't that many miles at all in the first place. Would have took more time on foot compared to driving. But what I'm getting at is, you go so far down the highway, how much further are you supposed to go? At the time, you're not going to know where Noah is. You're not even going to know, oh, it's just a bit more down there and that's where he's at. You're not going to know at the time. And with the limited lighting, you're not going to be able to see clearly either. So you go so far down hoping to find Noah, yields no results. You could keep on going and going, but how long for until you actually find Noah? It's the uncertainty. You got to take in mind the efficiency, the practicality of it. Maybe he's just not there. Maybe he did go back home and then try rationalizing with previous thoughts and patterns of what Noah would normally do, right? Or has done previous. And then people use it as a comfort blanket to mask the worries within, because there must have been worry and concern in order to spark a reaction of a search taking place. Now, I know Michael says, first there wasn't a search, then there was a search, what's going on there? I think what Michael is interpreting about that, and more so Justin Roy in the past, is that it wasn't always made clear of a search that took place, supposedly. But I know Justin was going on about the geofence or the geonet, about the phone pings, about where they truly were at, about if there were searches to be done, or if the phone pings turned out to show activity on the highway, then likely partygoers or friends of friends or parents or guardians would then try and mask it up with, well, the reason why the phones were pinging in those areas is because a search was conducted in looking for Noah. Now, if that's the prediction that Justin Roy made, then that's what happened. But I don't know for certain. I do know it came up about the skepticism of at least trying to explain why pings of partygoers were on the highway at such an early time, but after Noah walked away, but before Noah's death was officially announced, right? I mean, all I said at the time was, yeah, phone pings could show people on the highway and getting closer to where Noah's body was to be found later. But as long as the phone pings stop before reaching the spot, well, then it's not as suspicious. Without much context or explanation, pings on the highway, coincidence or not, you can say is a bit suspicious. What are people doing out there at that time with limited lighting and only going so far down and then turning back round? What did they have in mind? What were they looking for? Why were they even there? So the story comes on in, which it supposedly did, about searches being done. It kind of makes sense with the inclusion of the Snapchat posts like Logan and Carter taking that selfie at 4:30, and then about 10-12 minutes before that they had just got back after searching. It follows a certain order. Yes, you can say the 5:27 snap is a bit odd, as in, you know, they were looking for Noah earlier, concerned enough to search out there, didn't get any results, but then played it off as, oh well, he's probably okay, he's probably safe. Was that reassurance from what Jack Newton said towards other party goers? You know, when people don't know the full context about someone, their patterns and behaviour, so they do worry, they overthink, but then the best friend, the loved one, whoever, speaks up and says, you know what, all you people, you don't need to worry. My best friend, I know how he works, I know how he operates, I know what he does and what he can be like. He'll be okay. He's probably living it up down in another town. He's probably been picked up by someone like how he normally does. Or he's probably made it back home somehow. He'll be fine. That thinking can be considered a little bit reckless because what you might expect or anticipate won't always be that way. And it's when it's too late you find out, oh, it was different this time round. Anomalies are a good way of measuring if something is off or stands out. Was anything off or stood out with Noah Presgrove at around 3:30 of when walking away, which differed to earlier on when walking away possibly, or the day before, or parties before? Was there anything different that stood out, made it look unusual as for the reasoning of Noah walking away, or was it just like an everyday, a normal occurrence, so there would be no reason to get worried? But how often Has it happened where Noah has walked off, not returned back? No communication either, gone quiet, people have got worried, gone searching, no results, and then later or the day later, Noah decided to make a call or say, hey everyone, I made it home, finally. How often does that happen? If it never happens, then it makes it an anomaly and it makes it suspicious and worrying, and more action should be done. If you're used to a certain pattern routine by someone, they get back at a certain set time, they leave the house at a certain set time, when they fail to show up on that one occasion or they're late, it stands out. It's not the norm. When it's not the norm, something is unusual, abnormal, maybe something else has happened or got in the way. Good, bad, it makes you think. It might make you take action. So for Noah Presgrove to walk away like he did, that might be normal. To be away for 30 minutes, that might be normal. But to not return back and there's radio silence, how normal is that? Normal enough for said party goers to try and play it down and say, he's probably okay, he probably made it back home because it's happened in the past. What's happened in the past doesn't always repeat in the future or the present. If it's happened often enough, well then there's a routine and it's likely to be anticipated again. But if it's only happened once in a blue moon, once in 2 years, once in 10 years, it's going to be a bit harder to believe in, maybe. But I guess at the time, when you don't expect death, when you don't expect bad events like that, and you might be a bit drunk as well, your thoughts aren't going to be as sharp, you aren't going to be expecting the same. And if you're a positive individual, you're not going to think the worst case scenario. If you're a bit of a negative individual, you might think the worst case scenario. You might over panic, but sometimes it can save a life, it can save you, it can bring closure. So there's different ways to look at it. Let's continue on with the conversations with the screenshots. So I'll just zoom out at that. And of course you can pause the video whenever you want to reread the text and comments made by Michael and anyone else. This appears to be an archive from what was said in the past. I don't know if it's the full statement or part of the statement. Just know this is from Caleb Newton, Jack Newton's father, a statement that was publicly provided by Caleb on Facebook at some time in 2024, around the time of when I started covering the case myself on my channel, which was June 1st, 2024 onwards. You had Caleb Newton's official statement, you had Caden Pressey's first ever official statement, and they were documented on my channel. And guess what? This particular one, the video that I did on Caleb's statement, was falsely reported months later, as well as a video on Caleb and the Warwick boating accident of 2020, and even a video on Jack Newton, I think, with a conversation with Caleb over the text conversations. It was shown public. The statement was public, and my video was falsely reported under privacy guideline violations. No privacy was broken. It was already posted out there. But the said individual that made the statement made it public in the first place. So why should my video be taken down for privacy violations when it's public and the person that made it themselves made it public? It's ridiculous, right? But don't worry. Those 3 videos of mine that were falsely taken down, ripped from my channel, ripped from the statistics and so on. Oh, we came across the other wave where 4 or 5 videos of mine were ripped from my channel once again in the future, 2025 onwards, which linked to Caden Pressey and Alicia and so on. And it just so happened that Alicia, in a Facebook DM conversation in the background, which was shared with me, showed Alicia advising other people, if they want to help, report Warlight Ref's videos to YouTube, as in report them to get them taken down. And a few months later, certain said videos were taken down. You think that's normal behaviour? A person trying to cover the case, keeping it alive, also providing a space where people can come together and share thoughts and ideas. You think that's a good idea to get it shut down, to get it moved on? That it's just not common sense. Anyway, let's just read what Caleb once said on behalf of Jack. Overslept, as in Jack. Right, so unfortunately, this particular screenshot of Caleb's statement is limited and it's cropped. You could say, oh, was that done with a certain agenda, or was it done to focus in on an important part of the convo, what was said at the time? Well, it's highlighted where it shows the important part. Sometimes you crop images down when you want to focus on one particular point or statement, but sometimes it's nice to see the whole thing, and then you just highlight the points that stand out most of all. So some people could argue and say, well, this is selective, it's biased and whatnot, but read it anyway. As said, I did a video covering the full statement of Caleb in the past, but unfortunately the video was taken down out of my control, and I don't have the screenshot since, so we'll just work with this, what we've got. Caleb said, Jack Newton overslept a bit, and that's why he'd meet us at the ramp, which means Jack's father Caleb and Jack's grandfather, right? So yeah, meeting at the ramp of Warwicker. And as well to bring Jack, my son, to bring him a hat. He couldn't find his own, to my knowledge. That's because at 5:53 during that text conversation, Jack Newton said, could you get me a spare hat? I can't find mine. Somebody messed with it. Meaning someone at the party stole it, hid it as a prank. Couldn't find it afterwards. Interestingly, Noah Presgrove in the same boat. His hat missing. His glasses missing. His wallet missing. Golf clubs and bags supposedly missing. So, whoever messed with Jack's hat, did they also mess with Noah's? Who knows? It's always a possibility. But Caleb says, I don't think that Jack knew that Noah was even missing yet. Then, about 6:05 in the morning, I got a call no parent ever wants to get. It was a short and hard to understand him, but he had been driving up on Noah. There were already a couple vehicles there that he had made the 911 call. I called my dad, as in Jack's grandfather, told him about the call. He said he'd come pick me up on the way. We drove straight there to the highway. By the time we arrived, there were several law enforcement and fire and rescue on the job. I went to console with my son. Yes, I was on scene. Then it was being treated as whatever. So it is annoying that it doesn't show the full context of this statement by Caleb, but when focusing in on the theme of today, as in what Jack was up to, what Jack likely knew, was Jack asleep at a given time, or was he awake searching? Was he aware, or was he in the dark? Until when going down the highway, that's how he found out. But the thing is, it appears that Jack supposedly found out that Noah was at least missing. Not dead, but missing. Because I believe it came from Jack in his own words in the last Parts in True Crime interview, which involved Jack, a pre-recorded interview with Rob and Cindy Dorfman. And then it was then shared, Rob and Cindy, with Ashley and Robin during that live stream or premiere. Re-listening to that pre-recorded interview because Jack didn't want to appear live or appear on camera, supposedly. Interesting. But nevertheless, Jack had said, it was around 5:30 when I was woken up by Jasmine Millan amongst the news of what happened to Noah Presgrove, as in walking off and not being found. And that's when Jack said, oh, he's probably here, he's probably there, etc. No room for concern or worry. But at 5:30 when Jack stated that in the interview, Robin and Ashley Chadwick said, no, it wasn't 5:30. It was actually 5 in the morning onwards when Jack was woken up. It wasn't 5:30. So that's a bit unusual, isn't it? But 5:30 is an important time because that's the time of when Caden Pressey from his timeline, including Isaac Rojas, Brylan Sweat, Mikey Lair, were all at the highway about to leave when told to by a service truck driver who was aggressive and swearing. Well, if Mikey was at the highway or about to leave the highway with Caden at 5:30, well, Jack said he woke up at 5:30, woken up, and then spoke with Mikey, who was at the house, who never went asleep. Mikey can't be in two places at once, and whilst you can say it's just hearsay, it's what Jack says in his words. Well, a few minutes before Jack was woken up by Jasmine was in bed with Logan and Mikey at 5:27. Awake, laughing, smiling. So you can see the order of how it goes in, as in some know what's up, as in Noah missing, but they don't know the true extent, as in the death. And then Jack finds out about the missing part at 5:30, brushes it off, but doesn't know about the death. Then later finds out what really happened. But for Caleb to have said at the time, I don't think that Jack even knew that Noah was missing yet. I think that's bollocks because, well, I know it's bollocks because from what I remember, Jack Newton said in the interview, it was 5:30, he was woken up by Jasmine about the news of Noah missing. So Caleb here saying, I don't think he knew, he did know. Jack admitted it himself about Noah missing. But you got to take in mind, this is what Caleb knows or what he thought of at the time. I don't think. So it's not said with absolute confidence or a fact. So the language and wording is appropriate at the end of the day there. But yeah, just picking up on. And then what's a part of here? It's a little bit blurry. It's a bit zoomed out. I'll make it a bit clearer for you. Maybe a bit too much there. I tried enhancing some of the images and making the quality a bit more sharper. Hopefully that shows up. Look, once again, certain responses or comments are cropped out, which is very unfortunate. Jack Newton is in the grey box on the left, and then the bluish purple message boxes. What could it be? Justin Roy? Could it be Michael? Could it be somebody else likely? And this dates back to May 5th at 1:55 p.m, likely 2024. Something about if only we could get the federal police involved, because this case something nowhere past that. It's been over a year. Seems odd, but I'm no expert yet. But out of all the people, only one that seemed to went to help and have your back. I think it was his girlfriend and another one of his friends. Something happened and are hiding rather than helping because they're afraid. So I wish there was some way to get people at the party, whatever. And Jack, May 5th at 3:26 p.m. 2024 said it was either the Texas kids or the semi-driver. Some of this we may have already seen before, but there's no harm going over it. Jack says, none of Noah's friends or the girl he was seeing would ever hurt him. Now, in terms of the girl that Noah was seeing at the time, I can't bloody remember which one it is because it goes all over the bloody place. It's either Phelan, or it's Nevaeh. One or the other, right? Either way, one or the other, Noah's girlfriend at the time, supposedly Jack was flirting with them behind Noah's back. That's what Caden said at the party when that fight occurred. That altercation, that pushing. Well, Caden didn't say it was a fight, just an argument, verbal. Justin Roy, though, said it was aggressive pushing and shoving, Sam. And that Caden Pressey had to break it up, but Caden never acknowledged it himself. I know it might sound really repetitive, this, but I just bring it up every now and again just for that full context, because there might be new people that come along and they don't know about it. Right? None of his friends or the girl ever want to see him hurt. And then, May 5th, 3:39. I'm guessing maybe now a good time to ask you what happened. Nosy, but I'm thinking you might know information, and if you know more information, I have resources to help you guys. His spirit, assuming the video can be trusted. What video? Audio call missed. And then there's some stuff lower down below there, but it's not accessible. I think what Michael did was take a screenshot of an already provided post or image on a previous post which had a collection collage, that's why it says plus 18 other photos, without clicking or expanding on them and taking the screenshots independently one by one. That's why there's a bit of an overlap below. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. This one's really blurry, so I'll read it out to you. At some point previously, Jack had said, by the time Noah walked off, everyone had left except the Texas kids and like our close friend group. So that involves Mikey, Brylan, Isaac, Carter, Avery, Caden, and any of the names, Logan, if I've missed out on any. But was it Stephanie Millan? You got Jasmine Millan and then the sister Stephanie Millan. At what time did she leave? Was she a friend to Noah or not? As for Justin Roy's family members and nephews, they had supposedly left earlier. hence why Jack's mentioning it here indirectly. Everyone had left. So when you add the Texas kids with the close group of friends, how many of them? 10, 15? So as for everybody else leaving, how many had left? By the time Noah had walked off, everyone had left. So what? Noah was first to walk away and then other people followed afterwards, except for the Texas ones and the close friend group. Because the problem is, I saw that comment by Stevie Howard in the past, supposedly saying that the cameras on the property weren't working, they were old, out of use, but the camera, or a camera, did work, and it showed after Noah had walked off, it showed Texas kids leaving as well. Were they leaving at a given time, which ties in line with when going out searching for Noah? Maybe. Or was it closer to around the time of when Noah walked away, which could imply, are they going after Noah, catching up with him, or oblivious where Noah's going and they're leaving the house? But Jack says here, Texas kids did not leave. So what were they doing then when Stevie says they were caught on camera walking away from the house? It's not something that I can show you as proof and evidence. I can only tell you from memory. And the reason why is because that screenshot appears to be long gone now. The comment made as well, maybe deleted. It's unfortunate. Beside that, Jack says, and apparently some other girls that were there left after Noah did. After Noah had left, girls left too. Well, the only girls that I can think of that did leave was Georgia, Caden's cousin, and Breely, the friend to Georgia. But Breely and Georgia supposedly left around 2 in the morning or close to 2 in the morning. And before that, supposedly Justin Roy's nephews had left as well. So that's like the remainder what Jack's referring to as for everyone leaving. But this is where the overlap is. Around 2 in the morning, Georgia, Breely leave, picked up by Breely's older sisters. Okay, and then the highway situation occurs with Alicia and Melissa, the mother to Georgia. We've already done a video on that, don't worry, you can look back at it. But here, Jack is saying that the girls, Jack isn't mentioning the exact names, I'm just basing it off interpretation, that it could mean Georgia Breely. But to say that other girls left after Noah did, who were those girls? Where were they going? Breely, Georgia left before Noah walked away, right? Maybe Jack got it mixed up here, maybe. But Jack isn't specific about which girls had left, so it is open to interpretation. It doesn't directly mean to say that Jack's got it wrong, but he's not exactly being clear about it either. The only other girl that had left, based on what Caden Pressey said when Renee Millan, the mother to Jasmine and Stephanie Millan, showed up, it was worded by Caden that when Renee, the mother, Renee's husband, Renee's daughter Stephanie Millan returning back. And Stephanie's boyfriend too returning back. So at what time did Stephanie Millan leave in the first place? Because Jasmine remained. Stephanie did not. So did Stephanie Millan leave after Noah walked away? And is that what Jack is referring to here? But it said girls, more than one. So what other girls, which other girls had left after Noah did? I can't think of any. If you know, leave a comment below. Jack says, but I just heard about that, so I'm not sure, to be honest. Right, so if you're not sure and you're not confident, then what you say may not be the truth, or not quite. So when Jack says that the girls left after Noah did, that could be Breely and Georgia. Yes, they left, but not after Noah, before Noah. So it is open to interpretation. You do have to acknowledge the language and wording when Jack says, I just heard about it and I'm not too sure. So it's open for questioning. No one followed him, do you know? No one followed Noah when walking away, and yet Stevie Howard left that comment saying after Noah walked away, it showed Texas kids leaving, going in the same direction. So there was a bit of following based on that. And even if that wasn't the case, let's not forget Robin Smith was the one to say on Facebook, if you remember, and we've done it a few times now, Robin says that there is evidence to show that Noah wasn't alone at the time of when it happened or leading up to it. What evidence is that? And who was about? So for whoever it was to say that no one followed Noah, and yet Robin Smith, victim's family member, says there is evidence to show that there was someone or some people around Noah at the time who could be witnesses. No follow-up on that since or explanation, but I needed to bring that up to you, so be sure to take into consideration. Jack said, no, the cops already have their names and addresses. I didn't even know them, but after Noah was gone for a while, everyone was looking for him. They said, but knowing Noah, I bet he was kipping or hiding and didn't let anyone find him. What? Because it's happened in the past, so you're basing it off that. To say that everyone was looking for Noah, that's once again reckless language. But to be honest, in life, a lot of humans like to use bollocks and over-exaggerate. It's like the people in there say, oh my God, Thursday, I watch your video wall I graph like 50 times. Oh my God, I've got heart palpitations just listening to your voice, your glaring, gleamy, beady eyes. Oh my goodness. And that haircut is so on point, really in touch, and it really makes butterflies flow in my stomach like 2 seconds every minute. Oh my God. And then I go to sleep and I'm thinking about you, and then I wake up and there's more videos and content to catch up on. And I'm like, bitch, please, get a grip of yourself. I've looked at the channel statistics. You haven't been watching the video multiple times. I can see the average watch duration. I can see the geographics and the location. So don't be chatting shit. Get a grip of yourself. Thank you. But at the end of the day, in life, not everybody takes it serious. And that's why there's a lot of reckless, careless, loose language. And it could be a bit of an aneurysm for me, because I like to be, or at least try to make an effort in being specific and clear in what I say, what I state, both YouTube and offline in real life. It's just the way I've become. But I don't see it often reciprocated or just in general. So it's problematic in a way. So when people say everyone, it's not always everyone. When Justin Roy said, well, 95% of people have voted this on the poll, so it basically means the whole population believes it to be that way, even though it was a small sample size of a selective group of people on a page, which does not represent the general total population of this world. So that was reckless language by Justin. Jack Newton has used reckless language as well, other times by saying in the same sentence, everyone and most, or everyone and some. It's two conflicting words. Everyone as a number means 100%. Most can mean over 50%. The term half of people believe this would mean 50%. Words can equate to percentages. If you say everyone in the same sentence as half of people, it makes no sense. You've contradicted yourself. If you say everybody believes that Warlight Raff has a head the size of planet Earth, as well, half of people believe the same thing. Now, either everybody believes it or half of the people believe that. If you said, everyone thinks that Warlight Raff has a dodgy looking face, but half of the people believe that it's down to hidden cosmetic surgery gone wrong, and that deep down, it's not as bad as you think. And maybe it's Halloween coming up, so that's why they look the way they do. See, it just comes down to language and wording, and it's not often made clear enough by people, so I just thought I'd add that in. Anyway, what else do we have? Jack says, no, the cops already have their names, yeah. But after he was gone, everyone's searching. Everyone's searching, yet what about you, Jack? Were you searching? No, you were asleep, so you can't say everyone. Everyone but you searching? Or everyone but you, Caden, who was asleep, Mikey, Isaac, right? Yeah? So you take it that how you think. In terms of searching for him, they said, was looking for him, said, but knowing, I bet he was hiding or kidding people and trying to let people find him, playing hide and seek. If that's what Jack thought at the time, at what point did Jack make that clear to the people searching? At 4 in the morning, 4:30, 4:20, 5:30 when woken up by Jasmine? It's not quite clear in this particular one, but we'll see. What else? How far was the party from where they found him? Who discovered him and what he left? Did he have anything different shoes? Jack says, yes, he did. He couldn't find one of his shoes. He, as in Caden Pressey, this is what it's on about. Yes, he couldn't Caden couldn't find one of his shoes hopping about, right? He was like dang near a mile. He as in Noah Presgrove. So this is the thing. If you're looking at it without context, when Jack says he and then he, Jack is first referring to Caden as in he couldn't find his shoe. No, actually, no, to be honest. Hold on, apologies about that. I'm being a bit of a twat myself. Hold on. Because, take in mind, Caden and Noah had troubles with shoes. Noah first, hence why putting on a mismatched pair. Caden afterwards, Caden couldn't find his own because Noah had already taken it. So, okay. So Noah couldn't find his other shoe when, I guess, about to walk away. And that Noah was a mile away where he was to be found. And it was a UTV with a roll cage. There were several people on it. If there is a roll cage in that side by side, does that prevent people from falling out? But does it also encourage obstacles where you've used to bash against it? It could hurt you if you're not strapped in, if the seatbelts aren't clamped, right? So it adds protection. It also adds danger if you're not strapped in, I guess. Maybe why one had a busted lip, one had a bloodied nose, why a Texas boy was injured from it, why Noah was injured in a way. If it stops you from falling out, though, it's probably not going to cause that injury with the ribs. Maybe, I could be wrong. Unless when being flung about inside, you whack your chest, your stomach area against the roll cage, the bar, which causes a breakage, snapping the ribs, puncturing inside organs, lungs, filling up with blood very slowly, leading to complications without Noah knowing at the time due to intoxication levels, in terms of adrenaline levels, and not making it known to anyone else about. And then when Noah walks away, eventually at 3:30, it kicks on in, the realisation, decides to take a rest, sleeps, rest, back at the bed of a pickup truck maybe, passes out because of what's going on, eventually wakes up disorientated, disorganised, and blood issues, stood up, vehicle moving, falls out, hits the ground, injured further, then finished off after. That's just a theory that's came about. I've had it in myself. You can always check it out yourself. Previous video. May 4th, may the 4th be with you at 11:55 p.m. Looks good. There is a link there, whatever that is. Jack says, I was there, but I just went to bed. What? I was there, as in the party. This is what I mean. These screenshots are from a full conversation and it doesn't show the full context. Maybe they've already been shown, maybe already been documented in the past, but you know, when you're looking at it for the first time or when you're looking at it after a long time of not seeing it, it's hard to follow the conversation. So I understand if there's any confusion, it might be cleared up later. What's this? You said you think it was the Texas kids or the semi-truck driver A1. How do you know this was anybody following him when he left? Something happened from the time he left, so where he was found, and I'm guessing you aren't going to be able to piece that puzzle together. May 5th, Jack says, I think the semi that called him in, I think his mirror hit the top of Noah's head. Even if it did, would it have caused all the rest of the injuries? No. Or the Texas kids offered him a ride and he jumped out of the back of the truck. Would Noah likely just jump out for the sake of it and hurt himself? Likely not. But could Noah have been in the back and stood up and accidentally fell out? Yes. But this is the thing. If any of that was true under those specific circumstances, you would think that those Texas kids offering Noah a ride would know that Noah was in the back, the bed of the truck. And if that truck remains parking up somewhere, the Texas kids get back to where they need to be or get home, and they look in the back of the truck and think, Noah's not there. Did he fall out? Oh, shit. And then when you hear the news of Noah being found on the highway, you'd think, that might be where we lost him. He fell out. He jumped out. But no one came forth about that or admitted that that's what happened, so likely it didn't happen. But did it happen as in Noah being in the back, but the ones driving the passenger unaware that Noah was there in the first place? Absolutely, as in explaining why said individuals wouldn't speak out because they were completely in the dark and they had no clue in the first place that Noah was in the back of their vehicle. That's as a suggestion, right? I can 100% promise the only ones from the party that could have had anything to do with it would be the Texas kids. Robin Smith at one point said on Facebook that from what she heard by police, 5 Texas kids were cleared from the case. Is that all of them, though? I don't know personally. So Jack is basically saying that it's not murder from the looks of it, it's accidental. However, Texas kids are people of interest if that's going to be the case, if it involves others, right? In terms of that could have had anything to do with it, with a level of competence by Jack, would be the Texas kids. This is what Jack believed in at the time, May 5th, 2024. Jack may think differently now. Things may have come about differently. So, got to take that in mind. It's important to look at the timestamps, dates. What else? Your girlfriend, Carter, knew he was missing around 3 something. I wonder who else knew he left and or what they might know. And Jack says, he just said he was going to cool off. He said he was going to cool off, and Caden said the same thing as well, from what he had been told, but not what he heard or saw firsthand. So for Jack to word it like this, it interprets it as Jack was there to witness it, or that Noah told Jack why to cool off. But from the patterns, what we've seen, what Jack says isn't based on what Jack's seen or what he's experienced. It's based on what other people witnessed, who then passed it on to Jack, and then Jack used it as a timeline. But it's not a personal timeline, it's a collective one of other people's points of views. That's what the problem is. That's why you can't compare it to Caden's. Caden's timeline, for most part of it, is a personal account. As with Jack's, it's not, it's a collective one. So you can't measure a collective timeline with an individual singular one of a person. So that's why it just doesn't work. He said he was going to cool off. How do you know he said that, Jack? Were you there to see it? Were you there to hear it? Likely not if you were asleep. Likely another person heard it or saw it and then passed it on to Jack, and now Jack is using other people's words as his own. And that interpretation is reckless. Did police investigate Texas kids and or semi? Was his girlfriend, I guess Noah's, the one he had the fight with before he walked off? Well, obviously not. Noah's girlfriend wasn't there. I'm guessing from there he never came back to the party. And then we move on to a different point of view, which I guess is brought back up, maybe, just as for conversation, which we've already previously looked at. Carter, Combs, Jasmine Mill and Logan all back at the house from 4:22 in the morning, or 4:24 round then. And then Avery and Brylan Sweat's phone pings were at the Sandplant entrance around 4:15 to 4:20. Okay, I was a little bit off, okay? Which is a little over half a mile from where Noah was to be found later. Then straight back to the house. Jack's phone pinged at the house all night, then jumped and pinged in the field behind the house a couple of times at weird hours. Now, I said, there's a difference between the phone pinging behind the house, which would mean the north field. There's a difference with that, because that field isn't near or behind where Noah's body was to be found. Where Noah's body was to be found is actually past the Sandplant crossing, north. And to be in the north field behind the house, you'd have to go over the Sandplant crossing into the next field onwards to be behind where Noah's body was to be found at the highway. So there is a big difference there. So it wasn't made clear, but I did. Beside that, the lie detector. Okay, so, but they wanted confirmation on it. Then, of course, Jack's phone pinged when he found Noah on the highway going to meet his dad, which was 6 in the morning onwards, 6:05. What's this one? Is this what we've already seen? Brooke, Bounds, Carter, and whoever, conversation. Zoom in just a little bit. Jack said when he got back, which would have been after 6 in the morning, which would make sense based on that timeline by itself. 5:53, getting ready to leave, unaware of what's happened to Noah, assuming he's already made it back home earlier, played it off as nothing, getting ready for the fishing trip, driving down the highway, finds out what's happened, confirms it up close, shocked, panic. 5 minutes later, makes a call to his father, takes some time for the father to come on down to console with his son. In between, Jack goes back to the house to let people know about the news. Right? It makes sense based on that. It's just that Caden's timeline conflicted with Jack's, and that's what caused the uncertainty. But to be honest, whilst Jack's timeline could be a bit choppy in some ways, is Caden's any better? Don't think so. So the person responded at the time. So who's lying, Jack or Avery? What does Avery have to do with this? Let's see. We've seen the pings, neither are lying. Avery and Brylan Sweats went looking for Noah. When they didn't find him, went back home. Their phones didn't ping on Noah or very close to Noah, but they did ping at the Sandplank crossing. And as long as phone ping before you found the body and before getting to the body, then you wouldn't have known or seen it, right? If something happened so far on and it requires manual distance, it requires closeness and manual touch to see it, to feel it, to move something. You need to be right there on top of it at the actual spot. If you're under a mile or a bit away from it, you're not in arm's reach. You're not in eyes, eye perception and all of that, or ear. So the sensories aren't close to where it is. You're further away, so you can't really be responsible to some extent, unless you were like on the lookout from a distance, waiting for someone who was further down. That's the only counterpoint you could say. Anyway, where does it put them then? And Brooke says, so not sure how either are lying. What do you mean, where does it put them? How close to Noah, according to what they showed you? I'll find out an exact location, how many featuring to half mileage they said. Half mileage. Does that continue on? I know, okay, let's just see this. So you might want to talk. I know where Avery's pinged and where we've seen it. It didn't ping on Noah's body or close around it. But she was asleep, according to Jack. Who was asleep? And at what time? When they were out looking for him, Jack said when he got back, which would have been after 6 a.m. We've seen the pings, neither are lying, Avery and Sweats looking for it out. So it's kind of like in the bloody dodgy wrong order. That's great. So it didn't actually give the context there, but then this one did give the context as in the timing and the rough location as in the Sandplank crossing, right? Okay. So it kind of fills in these blanks here. And then this is the one you've been waiting for, which we'll read out now and then I'll analyse along the way with the additional comments. Tree Flower, also known as Casey Smith, also known as Noah Presgrove's biological mother, recently, 17 hours ago since making this video, she says, I will say this, when I saw Jack Newton at Noah's funeral home, I asked him, well, at the funeral home which involved Noah, I asked him what had happened. Jack said, all I know is Noah wakes me up, tagging me, telling me to take him home. And I said, no. And he took off. I guess walked away. Jack Newton said that was around 1:30 in the morning, a.m. Jack Newton has changed his story at least 4 to 5 times since. What, so was the beginning, that was the original claim and then it's changed since? Some big discrepancies there, if I'll be honest with you. Here we are, so just starting from the top, Cindy, God expose all their lies, let the truth come out and hold them accountable. Jania, I also watched the episode of Warlight Ref explaining this text thread. It was interesting that Jack also suspected the Texas boys of pulling the cameras down at the store in Terrell. So shout out to Laurie for them watching my video, that's appreciated. But what's this about, as in Texas boys pulling the cameras down at the store in Terrell? I don't know if that was within the chat, the live chat last night or whenever I did my video. I personally don't remember talking about Texas boys ripping or physically ripping off cameras off the store in Terrell. All I said was I couldn't see the cameras at the Mini-Mart store, whether they be hidden or in other places. I mean, who did talk about Texas boys pulling the cameras off physically? I've never seen that before. Weird. But then here's Tree Flower, so we might as well address it right now. Okay, Jack, funeral home, conversation, one-on-one, and at the time, which has changed since from the looks of it, Noah woke me up. And that was around 1:30 in the morning. Why was Noah Presgrove about to take off at 1:30 in the morning, right? I mean, that early on, it might tie in line with when Noah did want to go home, and when Noah reached out to Caden Pressey, and then when Noah reached out to some other people, and Caden said he didn't see it, but he overheard Noah asking other people for a ride home, which was unsuccessful. But then past a certain point, such as 1:50 in the morning, when Jack is still awake and Noah is as well, and they're smiling, by that point onwards, Noah seemed okay and content. In fact, when it came to around 2 in the morning, when Breely and Georgia were about to leave and Breely's sisters showed up, they were willing to give Noah a ride home, but even Noah wasn't around to accept it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Tim Daniel may have made a reference saying he was in communication with one of Breely's sisters that came face to face with Noah Presgrove, and Noah did not want a lift and remained at the house. If that's true or so, then it puts it into perspective that Noah may have been okay with staying at the house and wanted to remain there from there on, but still wanted to get away from the place to get a breather if things got a bit tense or so later at 3:30, for example. But this one is 1:30. So Noah walking off at 1:30 versus Noah walking off at 3:30. Is it two separate events, or is it one event which happened at one time or the other, and one person's lying or made a big mistake? Very weird. Now, I do have a screenshot of this, and we can always do a map analysis looking at it closer, right? He said, all I know is Noah wakes me up tagging, prodding, poking, asking for a favour to be taken home. And Jack said no, so he took off. But this is the thing, he took off, Noah took off. What, took off from the bedroom and left the room? Left the house, left the property? It's not quite clear. So what Jack may have told Tree Flower at one point can be interpreted two different ways. Either Noah wanted a ride back home at 1:30, seeked out his best friend. Did Noah ask his best friend first for a ride home, or did Noah ask other partygoers for a ride home first? Because if Noah had asked Jack first because of best friend, hey, can I have a ride home? And the answer was no, then maybe that's what encouraged Noah to take off from the room, but not the house, and to ask other people for a ride home. And when that didn't work out, then eventually Noah thought, you know what, I won't bother now. Or does take off mean as in that's when Noah actually walked off from the party? Language and wording can be interpreted one way or the other, so you look at it however you want to. The bit about Jack Newton has changed his story at least 4 to 5 times since. Well, if Tree Flower is referring to Jack telling me that 1:30 is when it happened and around 1:30 is when Noah walked off from the party, that is then the timing before the side-by-side rollover, and it's also before the shower, and it's also before the shower debacle, so it's much earlier on. It kind of turns everything upside down, of course, that Noah wanted to leave earlier, that Noah had enough, that the reasoning, if it was true, that Noah had taken off at around 1:30, and it ties in line with when Noah wanted a ride home and he didn't get what he wanted, he walked off to cool down. Is it possible, though, that whilst the stories may change, it's more so that what happened at 1:30 did happen, and Noah did walk off but then returned back, and then at 3:30 Noah walked off again because he was denied a bed to sleep in? Could have been multiple times Noah walked off, or it might have just been one time, and if it's only one time, then it links to what Tree Flower is saying here about the story changing 4 to 5 times. But the story changing 4 to 5 times, is that specifically about the story of when Noah walked off, or is it including when Jack Newton went to sleep? So, not enough context, but it's still kind of shocking in a way. Really interesting that he hasn't brought it up in any of the interviews before. But the thing is, how many interviews has Jack participated in? Maybe not as many as you think. And how often has it changed? And when did it change? In interviews or through text messages and the odd public post? Laura, define searching in paragraph 3, please. Me thinks it is different than whatever. Andrea, what drunk kids are going to remember their bedtime though? Do you really think it's that odd? Caden also got his bedtime wrong and adjusted it. Absolutely. These were not really kids. The word is so overused. Yeah, that's true, Laura, but sometimes people use the term kids when it's older individuals looking upon these partygoers, thinking of them as their own kids. Like it's like a motherly instinct. It's just an instinct thing. If you are the same age of these said partygoers, you wouldn't call them kids. You'd call them young adults, friends, acquaintances, whatever. But Laura Dutton does not give a clear response back to Andrea Chuprov. So there's a bit of deflection of conversation. I'm a mom. To me, they're kids. Motherly instinct. Boom, there we go. I think everyone understands they aren't literal kids. I'm also a mom, and it somehow negates the situation at hand. They had critical thinking skills. Yeah, but the thing is, Laura, wasn't there an emphasis on certain partygoers being underage, as in Brealey, Georgia? And the true ages weren't always made clear. Some said it was sensationalism, who knows. But, look, Andrea says, yeah, so what with Jack? Caden is no better. Mistakes can be made, and Laura doesn't acknowledge it. Laura goes on about something else, which isn't a good form of communication, to be honest. See, the reality is, the reason why Caden has got his bedtime wrong is because I've seen it with my own eyes. I know you haven't because it's private and it's never seen before text conversations with Caden and whoever over Facebook, but I did make a video relaying all of the notes in my videos telling you about it, and if possible sometime I'll try and get the screenshots if possible. But just know what I say is based on what I've seen, okay? And Caden Pressey said in 2023, I think it was a month after Noah's death onwards, Caden Pressey with someone in Facebook Messenger had claimed that originally Georgia Brealey had left the party by 11 p.m. Sunday night, and that Caden himself went to bed at 11:30 p.m. Sunday night. Of course, that's a load of bollocks, isn't it? Because Caden onwards publicly said, it was 2 in the morning when he went to sleep. Not Sunday night at 11:30. But guess what? Jack Newton did the same as Caden, as in by saying to Victor, supposedly, as in Jack himself and girlfriend Carter went to bed Sunday night at 11:30. Then that changed to 1 in the morning, then it changed to 2 in the morning. Yeah, it's not a good look, is it? But neither is Caden Pressey. You could say they're both as bad as each other, but is it to be expected when what's happened has happened and memory issues? Maybe. Anyway. Carla, exactly, Michael. Then they wonder why no one believes the damn thing that they say, just liars. But people are fine in believing what Caden Pressey says, even though Caden has just as many discrepancies as Jack, if not more. So there is a bit of picking and choosing there. And that's not an attack, that's just a valid observation. Some links there and whatnot. Don't really need to check that out too much. Go to the Army page. Well, that's if you remember on it, if you still have access. Is it all on YouTube? Yes. Spotify as well. Especially good. Looks like they do a good job at getting them solved as well. Mention Donna, a different Donna. We are going to need you in that courtroom, Michael, when this finally gets before the judge and jury. How is no one else not bombarding a higher level LE? Laura says, because Donna, we are supposed to trust absolute the local LE according to Denise R. Arnold. If we don't, we do not agree with Noah's family. And if you, on the other end of the spectrum, if you question Caden Pressey, you're a supporter of Jack, or you're a part of the murder cover-up, basically. So it goes both ways. And Justin says, I have for about 18 months. Right. Okay, so that's it for the comments there. I'll give you my final thoughts. With that all being said, the main focal point was to do with what the victim's family has to say, more so Noah's mother, who may not always speak out publicly, but when she does, there's some interesting points made. We don't often hear from the victim's family in general, and with the wrongful death lawsuit being filed, things have been somewhat quiet. So it's interesting now for what Noah's mom says public and on that particular page. I've never heard of it before myself, but then again, it might have only been said a couple of times from the horse's mouth and at a time of when I wasn't on a certain page, or even about when covering the case. So learning on the spot, I think certain times given like 1:30 in the morning, how does that compare and contrast to what Jasmine told Caden about walking off, and then what Jack had said at a later point, 3:30? What's really going on? See, taking off can be interpreted in different ways, as in taking off from the room, but going into another room of the same house, or taking off altogether, walking away, which Noah did at 3:30. So did Noah walk off multiple times? Did Noah walk off only one time? The more times you walk away, the more times you need space. Are you really in a healthy, good environment, or is it a bit problematic if you need to keep getting away, if you need to taking time out? So I think we'll do a map analysis on some of that and just go into a bit deeper. I think it's important to read that language, that wording, just so you don't get ahead of yourself and interpret it wrong. But for some of the victim's family to have that outlook on Jack Newton, as in disappointed or suspicious or skeptical of him, that's interesting, of course. You can let me know if you agree with what Casey says, and are you shocked or surprised by it? Have you seen it before? Drop all your comments and thoughts below, it'll help. And if you want to hit the like button, share the video, and hit the hype button if you're on mobile, down below in the comment section, you slide across, that'd be much appreciated. We'll see what happens next and what needs to be followed up on. You never know what's around the corner. My name's Wallite Raff. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.